Stop. You know what you want to do with that, right? You want to put a banging donk on it.
We support Scotland's climate justice.
That's sick.
Scotland is committed to world-leading carbon reduction targets
In order to reduce the future impact of climate change.
You know what?
Yep, we know climate change is impacting on communities worldwide already.
Increasingly erratic weather, increasing numbers of droughts and floods are taking the toll.
And it is the world's poorest communities who are most vulnerable
And who are least equipped to respond. The injustice is that those least responsible for climate change are most vulnerable to it.
That is why Scotland is calling for climate justice.
Climate justice.
Climate justice. Climate justice links human rights and development and puts people at the heart of our economic systems.
Climate justice is the ethical obligation to share our benefits from industrialisation
with those affected by the climate change it has caused.
Climate justice helps the world's poorest communities adapt to the impact of the changing climate.
Climate justice highlights that women suffer more than men from climate change and seeks to address that.
Climate justice tackles the impact of climate change now and seeks to reduce its impact in the future.
Let's make 2012 a year of climate justice.
Scotland's playing part of the worldwide action. Share Scotland's ambition to deliver climate justice. Share Scotland's ambition to deliver climate justice.
Okay. Well, first of all, greetings to everybody. And I want to bring in to represent all the billions of beings who haven't been mentioned at all today with regard to human consciousness. And here's the voice to represent the others. Simply means me, Jane, and chimpanzee. Well, simply means me, Jane, and chimpanzee. As we all know, we're going through very dark times. I want to bring in to represent all the billions of beings who haven't been mentioned at all today with regard to human consciousness. And here's the voice to represent the others. Simply means me, Jane, and chimpanzee.
Fucking what?
Well,
to have an International Day of Conscience to support the best in the human spirit, to build a culture of peace, and to honor the United Nations Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the UN system in its 75th year this year. The International Day of Conscience was adopted by the UN General Assembly on the 25th of July, 2019, in the 73rd session of the UN General Assembly. According to the resolution that created the International Day of Conscience, and I quote, "The International Day of Conscience constitutes a means of regularly mobilizing the efforts of the international community to promote peace, tolerance, inclusion, understanding, and solidarity in order to build a sustainable world of peace, solidarity, and harmony."
Fucking poof.
The resolution explicitly recognizes two great institutions, the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO.
The very organisation that's responsible for our compulsory LGB emphasis on the T education in our curriculum. The same organisation that's played a role in pushing this narrative that race doesn't exist. And this is supposedly to promote inclusion, is it? Because all I seem to see is a bunch of anti-racists cropping up all across my country with their bollocks about whiteness. And where did they get it from? UNESCO. But this specky shit is here to brag about tolerance.
The COVID-19, and they're leading global efforts to bring all of our multilateral institutions to bear in this crisis, and also to keep us on track in this moment at our fundamental objectives of human rights and sustainable development. I'm pleased to be able to read a statement by UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed. She says, "We commemorate the International Day of Conscience in a moment when the world faces a human crisis unlike any we have seen in the 75-year history of the United Nations. The UN General Assembly declared on the 5th of April the International Day of Conscience as a means of regularly mobilizing the efforts of the international community to promote peace, tolerance, inclusion, understanding, and solidarity in order to build a sustainable world of peace, solidarity, and harmony. Today, we have an opportunity to come together to respond to the multiple dimensions and the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic reinforces how interconnected the world is, reminding us that we are all one human family. Its magnitude demonstrates that only through a collective effort will we overcome. Governments, businesses, academia, civil society, and individuals need to come together in mounting the most robust and cooperative response the world has ever seen. As the United Nations Secretary General has said, and I quote, "This human crisis demands coordinated, decisive, inclusive, and innovative policy action from the world's leading economies and maximum financial and technical support for the poorest and most vulnerable people and countries," unquote. These are extraordinary times.
Sounds rather like climate justice. Just what is going on here? Because on the one hand, we have the climate gurus who are supposedly hell-bent on changing the world from the perils of a impending doom if we don't deindustrialise. Well, the coronavirus has sorted that one out for them. So what's left? Redistribution of our wealth. Well, apparently we need to do that anyway because of the coronavirus. Almost as if there's something fishy afoot here.
Gender justice.
Gender justice.
Gender justice.
Gender justice must be
part of climate justice.
must be a part of climate justice.
Must be part of climate justice.
Gender justice must be part of climate justice.
La justicia de género debe ser parte de la justicia climática.
Gender justice must be part of climate justice because more women are living in poverty, which means that they are more affected by climate change. Therefore, their voices must be at the table as they talk about their own rights and justice issues so that we can all live sustainably together. Because we are all part of this story.
La justicia climática debe ser incluida porque niños y mujeres son los más vulnerables a los efectos del cambio climático. Incluso la ONU declaró que son 14 veces más vulnerables que hombres.
Because women are more vulnerable due to climate change.
Because climate justice can't be achieved unless everyone, including women, is taken into account.
Porque tanto hombres como mujeres pueden contribuir y aportar en las decisiones en cuanto al cambio climático. Porque todos queremos un mundo igualitario y limpio.
Because equality is a crucial part of solving the climate crisis. We can't do it without women.
What the fuck's wrong with
Because climate disasters impact women and girls first and worst because of gender inequality.
Because until every girl and woman receives the dignity and respect that is due to them, nothing will work.
Gender justice must be part of climate justice discussions because women have everything to do with the discussion of climate justice. We've gone past the stage of pretending that it has nothing to do with women, and the time to act is now.
I'll bear that in mind.
If we don't center justice and if we don't center equity and people of color and people of low incomes, it's just going to be another...
People of low incomes and people of colour. I think what you mean there is poor white people and poor people of colour. Because there will be people out there that are considered people of colour who are rather wealthy, but they don't get included because it doesn't sound compelling enough when you're trying to tug at the heartstrings and complain about how oppressed you are because of inequality. And it also doesn't sound too good to come out and say what you really mean in relation to people that are white in poverty. Doesn't fit the narrative.
movement that leaves us behind.
The issue of climate change cannot be solved without the engagement of communities of color.
We have the innovative young leaders. We have people who are waking up and
You're not waking up to the fat little bollocks, but wow.
Paying attention, and it really is about how do we move folks to action.
The people are going to be affected the most are the ones that have contributed the least to this problem.
Just because voices aren't being heard doesn't mean they're not speaking or that they're not interested in the issue.
Let people know the stories that we're telling of how we're directly being impacted by all the pollution and just frankly all the unhealthy ways food is being produced right now.
Oh, get a grip. What are you suggesting? Bill Gates, sustainable baked beans.
Topling, and I'm one of the young advisors for the Children's Commissioner, and I'm also one of the MSYPs for Orkney. Also, it's probably good to say that I do live in Orkney, so in the background you can hear the chickens next door, and sorry, I can't stop that.
I'm Maria, a young advisor for the CYPCS and an MSYP for the Western Isles. We were supposed to be presenting the strategic plan in front of the Scottish Parliament today, and although this may not be as fancy, in this current situation we think it is really important to keep up our human rights work. This strategic plan highlighted 3 key issues important to young people: climate justice.
And why would climate justice be important to young people unless they were being taught it in school? Climate justice is rather similar to communism, don't you think?
Mental health and child poverty. The CYPS worked together with young people like us to find out what these issues were.
One of the main priorities that young people told us was important to them was climate justice. This also happens to be the topic of the Scottish Youth Parliament's national campaign this year. So it's pretty obvious to us that this is important to young people in Scotland and all over the world. Last summer, I done an internship at Children in Scotland as a social and digital research volunteer, and part of the work I covered was what people and groups are doing work around climate change. So, for example, Climate 2050 and all the young people that are striking for the Fridays for Future movement outside. So I'm really excited to see what work we are going to do at the Children's Commissioner's office as part of
Some of the problems that young people are worried about concerning mental health